All right. Welcome, everyone. Holding by the Book of Leviticus Chapter 17. Again, welcome, everyone. Holding by the Book of Leviticus Chapter 17. I do apologize for my voice. Hope it's going to hold out. But in any case, we're holding by the Book of Leviticus Chapter 17. We're in verse 7. We spoke a little bit, or maybe a lot, last week about demons, right? And the mazalas, the spiritual influence of the stars, the moon, planets, and all that. So here the Torah says, let's go back. Torah says again, chapter 17, verse 7, it says, Voids b'chu'oid es ivcheim, v'seirim ashem zoyni ma'achareim, chukas zoylom, those lachem ledoros. Right? So here the Torah says they should no longer slaughter the sacrifices to demons. Right? After which they strayed after, there should be an eternal decree there for all generations. So we mentioned, as the Torah says, that Tifcheim with Seirim. Right? Seirim's a goat. Seirim's a he-goat. Right? There were two goats by Yom Kippur. There was the he-goat for one that was sacrificed. That's where the Kohen Gadol, the high priest, went in the Holy of Holies. And the other one that went to Azazel. Right? Azazel, we spoke quite a bit about the fact that it's not talking about, idolatry. Not sending it to, an idol. He's sending it into the desert, and the animal's going to die. It could die 150 different ways. Whatever it is. And Ibn Ezra over here said, so why are demons called Seirim? Why are they called goats or he-goats over here? So he says, when crazy people saw these demons, they saw a form like a goat. So we mentioned there are things in common that we mentioned from the Ramban, that there are things that the demons have in common with man and have in common with angels. Right? One thing is that they have wings like angels, they fly like angels, they know the future like angels. By humans, what are they? They eat and drink like humans, they procreate, they have children like humans, and they die. Right? They die like humans. So there was a whole question. How they know the future. Right? We spoke about heavenly influence and all that, but one thing we didn't necessarily get to, the Ramban over here, is, the question the Gemara asked, why do you really think angels know the future? Like, how do they know the future? How do they know the future? What's the simple explanation? So he says, the fact they fly in the air, angels fly around, right? They fly in the heavens. So they hear different things, right? They hear different. Actually, we did speak about this. They hear different things from the mazalah, from the, I guess, the heavenly influence of the ones that are in charge of the planets and the stars, and and all that. Because we mentioned every country has a guardian angel, right? And that angel pleads in front of God different things, for their country. But the mazalas are more like, the planets, the stars, the moon, and all that also, have heavily influence, right? The one example actually I didn't give, I'll mention now, right? So people say, well, it's kind of hard to understand, what that means. We'll make something very simple. Because it's brought down according to science that what? The moon has influence over tides. Right? That's been proven. Scientifically. So it's very interesting. Right? Why should that be? Why should an inanimate object, i.e., the moon, stars, planets, whatever, have any influence at all? Right? Why in the world should they have any influence? So you see, by the moon has influence. The moon has influence over the tides. Everyone agrees. Right? No one's going to say that's hogwash. No one's going to say, oh, it's only for the religious people. No, right? But the bottom line is that these mazolas, these, they what do they hear? What are these? What are these? What are these demons? What do they hear? They fly around. They fly around. So if they fly around, they hear things, right? They hear things from who? Right? From these people, these spiritual forces, right? They hear things. They hear things in the air. Now, does that mean they know the future? Right? Who knows the future? God knows the future. Nobody outside God knows the future. Only God knows the future. So when the Gemara asks, oh, you really think the angels know the future? What do they know? What do they know? They know what they hear. They know what they hear. So therefore what? They don't know the future. They hear things. They hear things. So we have this whole thing here. Right, exactly how that works. And the Ramban says they don't know things. They don't know things for many days. Right? In other words, they don't know what's going to happen 2 days from now, 5 days from now. They only know something's going to happen imminent. Something that's imminent. Right? They might be able to know. That's basically what the Ramban over here says. So they have certain character traits, right? They have certain character traits, like humans. They have certain things, certain character traits, like angels. Now, I would say that's very good. Even the Ramchal and Derech Hashem, the Ramchal says that there are these spiritual forces. Doesn't really go into detail. Now, there are people guarantee get caught in this, right? So, I want to know this, and I want to know that, and I want to know the other thing. It's relevant. Essentially, it's all relevant. We don't come in contact with demons. They don't have the same power they used to have, right? For different reasons. The rest doesn't matter. I know it's interesting. People are into these things and this and that. Trust me, it's all Kabbalah, right? It's all Kabbalah 101, 101A. That's what it is. So what do we take out from this? We take out the fact there are spiritual forces, okay? Right? And they can do certain things, but it's not like we're in contact with them. It's not like we have any connection to them, at all. So again, just something to keep in mind. I just think, a lot of times these type of things very interesting. That's, people are like, wow, this is so wild, so interesting. I want to know more. Okay, but practically speaking, it's got no relevance. It's got no relevance to anyone's life, right? But he's telling you, the Run's telling you, what these demons are, right? And what they do. Now, someone asks, just so I can read it here. Somebody asks, but the sun and the moon, don't they have feelings? So the Rambam brings down in more Nevuchim, a guy for the perplexed. Right? Actually, even before we get there, it's true. There was a conflict. Rashi says in the Medrash, there's a conflict, and the Gemara brings it down also. There's a fight between the sun and the moon. Right? Can't have two crowns on one head. Right? Rashi says from the Medrash. So the sun was crowned during the day, gives off light during the day, the moon at night. Right? So the moon, the moon gets the reflection, and is brighter than all the other stars. It's like in charge of the night, so to speak. So there's always a question, and that is, okay, the sun's got its own light, so to speak. Where does the moon's light come from? It doesn't come from its own light. Where does the moon's light come from? It's a reflection, or a refraction, really. to refraction. So if it's a refraction, it doesn't really have its own light. But in any case, someone points out, well, they fought. They have feelings. Seemingly they do. So the Rambam and the Guide for the Perplexed, I mean, it's translated into, it is translated in English. And a lot of the Guide for the Perplexed is all about, why we do what we do. What the mitzvah is all about. Right? What the mitzvah is all about. What's behind. What's behind the mitzvah. Now, the problem is that it's not an easy book to go through. It was translated, first of all, it was written in Arabic, very flowery language in Arabic. It was translated into Hebrew and translated into English. Now, this book is really not in vogue today. Not too many people, look at it too much. And what's the reason? Why did the Rambam write it? He wrote the book in order that there were so many Jews going astray from secular philosophy, i.e. from Aristotle, Socrates, and all that. So he felt the need to write a book for that generation, counteracting all that. So that Jews would understand why we keep the mitzvahs, what the mitzvahs are about, and all that, not fall into the trap of, Aristotle and, Aristotle's beliefs and, and all that. So today people don't really care. Today, it's all about what I do, what I want to do. I got free choice. I can do this. I can do that. Nobody's asking these questions today. There aren't any philosophers today. At least none I've met in the last 30 years. Right? There aren't any real philosophers today asking these questions. Right? Essentially, they just want to do what they want to do and they want to justify what they do. That's what they want more than anything else. They want to justify. They want to justify what they do. So therefore, they're going to say euthanasia is not murder. Euthanasia essentially is mercy. So we look at it as being merciful. We have an agenda. We want to put grandpa out of our misery. Right? He's in pain anyway, so cut off his pacemaker. What's the big deal? He suffered enough. We don't want to suffer anymore. But that means you're playing God here. That means you think you have the right, calling the shots. So today, people are not interested in deep philosophical questions in general. They just want to do what they want to do. They want to do what they want to do. They want to justify what they want to do. Right? That's what it is. Like I said, in the last 30 years, I've met too many philosophers. But a lot of people just want to do what they want to do. They don't want to be told that they're wrong. Right? They don't want to be told that what they do is wrong. They don't want to be told that. Right? Makes sense. No one wants to get rebuked. But at the same time, say live and let live. So, okay, it's a whole nother thing. Right? It's a whole nother thing I spoke about in Perkei Avos yesterday. But at the same time, anyone who wants to get the book in English, I'm not saying you can't get it. Right? I'm just saying it's really not applicable today. Definitely not applicable. So what do we take out from this? Even if you read the book, Derech Hashem, and Derech Hashem and the way of God, where Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, the Ramchal, right, wrote all about, why God created the world. What's the purpose of man? What, how does evil inclination work? What did the world look like before Adam and Eve ate from the tree of knowledge? Why, the evil inclination, reincarnation, what's it called? What's the purpose of the nation? Spiritual forces, right? So it talks a lot about these things. And a lot of them, okay, a lot of what it talks about, is according to Kabbalah, very good. So I gave classes on it, but, the whole point was understanding what, there are these spiritual forces. This is what they do, right? They don't have independent power. They don't have free will. They can't do whatever they want. And they are really messengers for God. So whatever, it's a whole thing exactly how in the spiritual world things work and how things get judged. Why? Because the person does an action, right? Person does an action in this world. What happens? Let's say he does a mitzvah, right? We'll make it easy. He does a mitzvah. Very good. So what happens? Makes a blessing. Let's say a Jew makes a blessing over something. Now at that point, God's going to judge it, right? No, he's not judging did he make it according to Kabbalistic tradition or not. he said the words, understood what he's saying, had, proper intention. So that has spiritual impact. It has spiritual impact. Yeah. If a person, even if we don't see it, person made a blessing over an apple, over a peach, over a pear. So it's brought down that has tremendous spiritual influence when you make the blessing. When a Jew makes the blessing, it's going to have spiritual influence over all fruit-bearing trees. Very good. Right? Do we see it? No. But the fact is that it's a physical act. It's very hard to explain in any language, right? But it's a physical act. I have a physical act that has spiritual repercussions as well. In other words, I'm taking this apple because I'm hungry. I make a blessing. I now sanctify. I use God's name. I say he's king of the world because that's what you need for a blessing. You need to say that you need to mention God's name, Hashem Elokeinu. And I actually just gave this over last week in my class on laws of blessings. You got to say God, you have to say God's name, and you have to say he's king of the world. You need both. If I have one without the other, it's not a blessing. It's not a blessing in vain at all. It's not a blessing, period. Right? You need both things. You got to acknowledge who God is by mentioning him by name, and you got to say he's king of the world. One without the other is not even a blessing in vain. It's nothing. Right? It's zero. Right? So the fact is there are spiritual repercussions and physical repercussions for what I do. Right? So we'll give an example. Right? We'll give an example. Physical repercussions. Let's say a woman is pregnant and a woman smokes crack. So what can happen? The child can come out deformed. Now, that's a physical reality. Now, everyone's going to ask, but it's not the child's fault. Child didn't do anything over here. Child is blameless, right? Child 100% is blameless. Child is 100% blameless, but there's a reality. And the reality is that it come out deformed. Now, how does that work? We'll just throw this out there for a second. How does that work in general? Because we just said it can't be punishment for the child. True. But what about the soul? What about the soul? So it could be someone sinned and did certain things that soul has to come back in a messed up body. Now, again, if the child, we're going to make this very simple. If the person does not get punished in this world until after the age of 13 or 12 for a woman, or up to the age of 20, they will not get punished for their actions before that. So if that's true and the child is born and it's born messed up, God forbid, mentally challenged, disease, whatever it is, it's not the child's fault, not the parent's fault. Even if it's an issue with genetics, doesn't matter, right? That soul, for whatever reason, has to be in that messed up body, right? That's reincarnation. That's reincarnation 101 or 101A. So therefore, the soul has to be in that body. Okay. Now, if the soul has to be in that body, then again, it cannot be punishment for the child. Child didn't do anything wrong, right? So by definition, if there's no punishment over here, then something else is going on. So the rabbis tell us what else is going on. It must be that there's a spiritual world. There's reward and punishment. Without going into all that, it'll take me forever to go through it, right? But there's reward and punishment for what we do. And it could be that when the soul gets judged, it can have the opportunity to fix up whatever it needs to fix up and come back to this world. And one of the ways is it could come back in a messed up body, right? So therefore, it cannot be punishment. Punishment for the soul, yes. Right now, punishment, it's fixing up the soul. Right? In other words, the soul comes back to be fixed up in that way. And once that person dies, right, then that soul go upstairs and it gets its tikkun. It gets fixed up, 100%. But it's not punishment, right? Not punishment for the child. It's not punishment for the parents. Parents are just a conduit to bring that soul into the world. Yeah. So again, is it important and interesting? Let's say better. Is it interesting to know, these spiritual forces and, a little bit what they do? Okay. Would I waste time? Trying to delve into it more, trying to find information? Person could, but I think at JIT and Jew in training, there are a million other things much more important than that. That I would call as extracurricular activity. You want to read about it? Okay. I wouldn't do it at the expense of what I really need to know, right? Blessings, kashrus, 13 principles of faith, like all this, the laws of Shabbos. You got to know what you got to know practically. This is like just out there, very good. Okay, so people know it exists. I remember once I asked my Rebbe a question, and it's like, "Oh, you're learning Kabbalah?" And I was like, "No, I was learning one of the later commentaries on a more esoteric Gemara, what we call a Gadata. Gadata, a friend of mine would say, you could learn it in 5 minutes, or you can learn it in 5 years. Meaning, there are multiple, levels of learning. Of learning this. Yeah. So I always look up one of the later commentaries, and it's either you get it 100%, it's like, relatively straightforward, or it's Kabbalah, right? It's one or the other. So I remember once I asked my Rebbe a question. It's like, what are you doing? You learning Kabbalah? I was like, no, I mentioned from this book and whatever. So he looked at me, gave me a big smile, says, listen, it's a good thing you know that. He says, very good thing you know that. There was I'll just tell you what it was. There was a question of Elijah the prophet asked someone a question, or was talking to someone. He was in the graveyard, talking to be in the graveyard. It's going right. So Ben Ish Chai is the one who wrote like, I don't know, 50, 60 books. He was like one of the big rabbis in Baghdad more than 100 years ago, and he used to give over these sermons to people who worked. That's what we speak about to the right after services in the morning. The people who worked. Imagine what the people who were there were like. So in any case, I said no. It's an explicit. Ben Ish Chai is the one. He's the one that is known for the book, right? That's what he calls his book, the Ben Ish Chai, or one of his books anyway. So he says there are two aspects of Eliyahu Hanavi, of Elijah the prophet. It's Eliyahu Hanavi, and it's Eliyahu HaTishbi, right? That's where it's from, right? Eliyahu HaTishbi. So he said the two different aspects of Elijah the prophet. So he goes to this whole explanation, right? The Ben Ish Chai goes the whole explanation. I was totally lost. So I asked them about it. I said, what's this idea, about the two aspects of Elijah the prophet? He was like, you learning Kabbalah? I was like, no, it says it from the Ben Ish Chai. So he laughed and he said, okay. He said, I give you a blessing. You learn the entire Torah, all the entire Talmud, all the commentaries, and you have it like the back of your hand. He said, I give you a bracha, I give you a blessing. You should also learn that. You should also learn Kabbalah. Yeah. So I said, but I bet the Rav could explain it to me. So he goes, yeah, I could, but he said, I don't, he says, I don't have time. So I took off my watch. I put it on the table. I said, come on, let's go. I said, I'm ready. I'm ready for the first lesson. And he goes, your wife's calling you. Go home. I'm like, I got plenty of time. She's not going to miss me. He's like, don't worry about it. And that was it. That was the end of the discussion. So again, these type of things, I think are very interesting, in different ways. But a person has to be ready for it, right? In other words, you can't learn, right? The idea is you can't learn, you can't learn calculus, right? Higher mathematics, you don't know trigonometry or algebra. You can't learn to run if you don't know how to walk or crawl, right? It's the same thing. People want to jump through hoops and, and climb up the top of the ladder before they even got to the first rung, right? So the problem. So, okay, these ideas very good. You want to look into it more? Extracurricular activity, how much you're really going to understand? Probably not very much. Probably not very much. I would say even if it's so watered down, yeah, you might get something out of it, but obviously you're not going to get the real thing. I see it all the time. That's why I mentioned it. I see it all the time. Some people will quote all kinds of things. I'm like, what are you quoting it for? I won't even take what they say seriously. About it. It's like, oh, it says in Hasidus, and it says like this, it says like that. Okay, you want to explain it to me in layman's terms? Then I have field day. They won't be, they'll be able to spit back things. They'll be able to repeat things. Very good. They'll be able to repeat it. Okay. You know what it means? You have any idea what it means? Oh, but it sounds good to talk about the, 10 spiritual worlds. And if you never really learned anything that much, certainly haven't gone through one tractate of Talmud in your life, like, what are you talking about over here? Okay, so my Rebbe would say it's a good thing. You've heard about it. You read a little bit about it. Move on. He said, it's not practical. Not practical to go through it now. You're not ready to go through it now. I mean, I don't think I'm still ready to go through it now anyway, but so there are two ramifications. We just talked about a physical ramification, right? With a woman who smokes crack while she's pregnant, the kid comes out messed up, right? Comes out mentally challenged. Okay, that's one thing. Now, talk about something spiritual. Let's say two people get together. They don't have to be married, but a forbidden relationship. And they have a child. Now, that child, we understand, is called what? A mamzer. Now, a mamzer, they normally translate it as a bastard child. It's a child that should never have been. It's a forbidden relationship. Why did the child come to be? Because God allowed it to happen. He allowed the child to come into the world. Now, what are the ramifications here? The ramifications are this child can only marry someone of the same union, right? Came from a similar union, or a convert. Now, someone's going to ask the question, I'm sure, what are we, second-class citizens? If they can't marry a normal, quote-unquote, a normal Jew, right? Once a person converts, aren't we full-fledged Jews? Convert should be a full-fledged Jew, right? Why they looked at, in this case, maybe like second-class citizens. Now, what's the problem here? Again, a mamzer can only marry someone of the same union. Same union, cannot marry a normal Jew. Certainly can't marry a Kohen for sure, but any other Jew that did not come from this union, they cannot marry. So what's the issue? Because a Jew has a pedigree. What's the pedigree? They were born to a Jewish mother. For better or for worse, like American Express, membership as privileges. Yeah, okay, so you're born to a Jewish mother. Very good. So therefore, you have a genealogy that goes all the way back to Mount Sinai, right? And let's say there haven't been any breaks in between. Goes all the way back to Mount Sinai. Now, a non-Jew, no offense to any non-Jews listening, they were born a non-Jew, not their fault. Doesn't really matter. The point is, they're blemished. Their soul is blemished, right? The Ramchal goes into great detail, right? The difference between a Jewish soul and a non-Jewish soul, right? Why they're not so much the difference, but why they're at a disadvantage. Why they're at a disadvantage? Because they don't have the same aspects of the soul, right? And the fact is, we have a lot more mitzvahs. Jews have a lot more mitzvahs. Because we have a lot more mitzvahs, they'll have a greater place in the world to come. But even with that, can a non-Jew convert? Yes. Can they get that extra aspect of the soul? Yes. Definitely possible. But in the meantime, they're at a disadvantage. Now, if that is true, so that means, in general, their soul, for lack of a better term, is blemished. Now, if that soul is blemished, even after conversion, right? So you're going to say, well, someone who converts is a cotton shanola adam. It's like a newborn baby. Very good, right? But that person, that soul was blemished before. Even if the soul was at Mount Sinai and got messed up through intermarriage and assimilation, okay. But it's blemished. So if that soul is blemished, so to speak, or that person in general is blemished, then they're allowed to marry. They're allowed to marry a mamzer. Why? Again, because their genealogy is problematic. A Jewish genealogy, as long as they come from a Jewish mother, and that's been proven, so there's no issue. Right? There's no issue over here. Right? There's no issue. No issue at all. Right? So there are certain things that even converts can't do. Certain things of holding positions of power. Let's say we learn out from a king, and the verse says from a king, he has to be from your people, from your brethren. The convert isn't. It's a technical issue. It's a technical issue. So you tell me, okay, what does the verse talk about? Power. King has power. So the rabbis learn out, convert cannot necessarily take a position that is power. Can a convert be a rabbinic court judge? That's the whole question. Can they be a head of a yeshiva? Can they give classes? Yeah. Can they be a rabbi of a synagogue? Right? A lot of questions. But it's not necessarily, doesn't have anything to do with knowledge. Right? It's a technical issue. Technical issue based on the verse. So there are certain things, certain things they can't do. Again, technical issue, over here. So that's why that because there's a lack of genealogy, then they can marry mamzer, right? It doesn't affect them. Now, how does the mamzer get fixed up? A mamzer themselves, even if they marry somebody, they marry a convert, the children still mamzerim. Doesn't help. But they're allowed to marry and have kids. The question is, if they marry let's say a slave, female slave, Jewish female slave, and they have a child, that child is now no longer a mamzer. So you fix up the child, you don't fix up the person. Now, Rebbe told me this many years ago. I don't know if it's still true. Rabbi told me many years ago, there's one country in the world, legally, according to international law, that you can buy slaves. And that was in Saudi Arabia. Now, could be it's changed, maybe yes, maybe no. Not up to date so much on that, but he told me there's only one place. So if you wanted to fix up your children, you could marry let's say a Jewish slave, right? Jewish slave over here. The question would be if you marry a non-Jewish slave, that'd be a good question. But that would take care of the problem. That child is no longer has the status of a mamzer. The person themselves can't fix. There's no way to fix. So why don't I mention the case of mamzer? I mentioned the case of mamzer because you have a case over here. You have a case where there's a physical act, but there are spiritual ramifications. I mean, there are many other examples also, but I think that's a good example, right? I think that's a good example, right? So you have a physical act can have physical ramifications, and also spiritual ramifications as well. Do you say Hashem Melech or Hashem HaMelech? You say Hashem Melech HaOlam, right? Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech HaOlam. The order matters. The order absolutely matters, right? You can't say it out of order. You got to say it in the right order. Right? You say it out of order, it's not even a blessing. You didn't even mention his name, it's out of order. Right? You definitely have to say it. Definitely have to say it in order. Someone there mentions, I know some are all into Kabbalah. Yeah, use it to excuse and minimize character effects or read the Torah. Yeah, listen, Kabbalah is very interesting. I met a lot of people in South America when I was there that became interested in Judaism through the Kabbalah Center. There's a Kabbalah Center there. So I remember I gave a class without any books. None of my books came till after Passover. But I spoke for a couple hours on about Passover. So I started speaking Spanish. Then I went and a lot of them understood Hebrew, so I went to Hebrew, I went to English, I went back to Spanish, whatever. So at the end, I told everybody, I said, I just want you to know. I said, everything I spoke about in the depth of Torah, I said, had nothing to do with Kabbalah. I said, I didn't mention anything in Kabbalah. So I wanted to show that the Torah is deep, even without Kabbalah. Isn't it true? It could be so much deeper if I knew Kabbalah, yeah, but if you're not ready to learn it, I'm not gonna, it's not gonna do anything. Right? Someone imagines, yeah, they show character effects of the Torah, they read the Torah, yeah, so what? Right? Who cares over here? They misuse it. Right? And conservative Jews also, misinterpret the Torah. And Reformed Jews want to uproot Torah. So what? Right? You're right. And that's what they do. They just misuse it. It's very, very interesting. People want to think like, wow, this sounds great, and it's so esoteric and this and that. What does that have to do with Torah? They keep mitzvahs or they don't keep mitzvahs. They don't keep mitzvahs. So what's it worth? It's like another academic subject. So they want to be these, these ultra, These ultra students. That's what they want to be. They want to be students. Okay. That has nothing to do with Torah. That has zero to do with Torah mitzvahs. Yeah. So, not only that, it's just extremely, confusing, in many ways. Because, you got very, very big ideas. Very, very big ideas, about things that, you need a lot more background. You need a lot more background to really, to really grasp it, to really understand it. So yeah, they might get something out of it. It depends how watered down it is, right? I'm not a big fan of people giving it over, especially to non-Jews. Listen, I know it's a big sell, and I know people are going to be, going to be interested, and they'll get, thousands and thousands of views, right? What's the point? I definitely don't understand the point, of doing that, because you're telling people they're holding nowhere. Someone asked me a question a while ago, about something, whatever. It was a while ago, and I said, "Well, it's very interesting. Never heard such a thing." So whatever. I looked around this, and that's Kabbalah, right? It was Kabbalah. Okay. So I'm not a big proponent of that, at all. I got a lot to say about it. I'm just going to say I don't think it's a good thing. I know people that do it. It has nothing to do with ratings. I'm not jealous of people's ratings. Great. So let them have thousands and thousands of views. But why are you giving that over? Why give it over to people who can't read the Aleph page? That's what I would say. You want to tell something in a deep way? Okay, you don't have to do that way. It's very easy. Someone doesn't know the Aleph page, like, a person can be inspired by telling them certain things and how you give it over. I don't have to go through Kabbalah to do that. I think, I definitely don't think it's a good thing. Other people may disagree. It's okay, right? But, teaching that to, and a lot of people that are going to listen are non-Jews. What's the point? What's the point? You want to teach Jews about it? Your choice. You want to teach non-Jews about it? Not holding anywhere in the world. Why in the world do you give it over? Any case, so yeah, can they make mistakes? Can they not keep Torah? A lot of things more esoteric and this and that. Very good. So what? Right? That's going to be my answer. So what? Doesn't matter. You'll find this wrong with the Torah. They'll find that wrong with the Torah. And even if they don't learn Kabbalah, you don't think they're going to find things wrong with the Torah? They'll also find things wrong with the Torah. Right? I don't think that necessarily has to do with Kabbalah. Right? I think they'll find things wrong with the Torah anyway. Right? Regardless. David was great-grandson of a convert, yeah? So 2 generations from the convert. First of all, it was 3 generations, but I think it was 3 generations. Even so, Ruth is Jewish, right? Ruth is Jewish, right? So her son is Jewish. Obviously, you need the wife to be Jewish. But if Ruth isn't Jewish at all, none of her sons are Jewish, all the way down. All her grandsons aren't Jewish. Right? I mention this because the Torah says Moabites are not allowed to come into the community. Right? Deuteronomy chapter 17, I think, or chapter 11, 17. It says converts never allowed, Moabites never allowed to come into the community. Right? So it says, how could she convert? So it wasn't as well known. It says a Moabite man, not a woman. So a woman could convert. Very good. But there's another issue here. There's another issue here. This opinion holds that if you marry Moabites, your kids and grandkids and great-grandkids all stay Moabites. Never changes. It never, ever changes. In other words, for all generations, according to that opinion, that's seemingly how we hold, a Moabite is like a recessive gene. It's always there. It's always there. Never goes away. No matter what you do. Now, if Ruth cannot be Jewish, if we say, like, there's a question about her Jewishness, King David's never Jewish. And it doesn't matter if King David's mother's Jewish or not. It's irrelevant. Why is it irrelevant? Because even though we go through the mother, right, to prove that person's Jewish, the reason is because even if it goes to the mother, she's got the status of Moabites. Moabite can never come into the community. So this is pretty crucial, even for the Christians. It's pretty crucial because Christians want to go back to King David also. They want to say JC comes from him, even though the discrepancy, there's a total discrepancy in the Gospels. How you get back to King David, okay, we're not even going to go there. But if Ruth isn't Jewish, you got a major problem. Major problem. You don't have a future Messiah. You don't have King David. King David's not Jewish, right? Essentially. Somebody asked, what if a person does not have written proof, their pedigree? We don't know if they are mums or convert. Okay. Yeah, interesting question. So, what's the greatest proof? Right? We'll throw this out there. It's a good question. What is the greatest proof that a person's Jewish? Right? You'll say, hey, your mother's Jewish. Right? And your mother's Jewish. Right? You know, generations through the mother that they're Jewish. Now we could say, well, let's say, you know, another good proof. There are two proofs there. One is we have a marriage document for your parents, Jewish marriage document for your parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, let's say you can't produce that. Or let's say they're not religious, even better. So let's say you don't have. What's another proof that it would prove Jewishness? 4 generations buried in the Jewish cemetery. Now, most people, even if they have some proof, they won't have that proof. They certainly won't be able to prove 3 generations before a marriage document, usually. I haven't met anyone who's been able to prove it. I had one person that probably 100% was Jewish, but, you know, they couldn't prove it. And not only that, rabbinical courts that they went to, no one ever told them they can't break Shabbos. So there's no proof. Now, I'll tell you, if someone comes in, you know, and says that they're Jewish, do we believe them? We should believe them. Yeah, especially if they look Jewish. We should believe them. Now, person's going to say, but you're going to ask for proof? You know, you call him up to the Torah as a Cohen, going to ask him for proof? No. Why aren't you going to ask him for proof? Right? Everyone will ask the question, right? It's a valid question. How do you know? Maybe it's a Levi. Maybe it's a Levite. Maybe it's a Mamzer, right? Very good. How do we know? Because we have something in Talmudic law that is called the chazaka. What does a chazaka mean? Chazaka literally means, chazak means to be strong. Literally means to be strong. But a chazaka over here means that we leave it on its status. What does it mean we leave it on its status? If someone comes and says they're a Jew, well, we'll make it easy. They say they're a Jew, not a Kohen, not a Levi, right? They say that they're a Jew. Okay. Now, do I have any proof at all or any reason to think this person's not a Jew? I have no reason to think they're not a Jew. I don't have any other information. I can assume they're a Jew. Yeah. If I have information, if I would know, 2 generations before there was a quasi, what's it called? The quasi conversion. That's a problem. That's what we call in Talmudic literature a reusa. What's a reusa? From the word ra, it's bad. Literally means it's evil, but it's bad. In other words, it's a strike against you. It calls it into question. As the English would say, it's a bit dodgy. For all you English people out there, it's a bit dodgy. Doesn't look good. Why? Because you got to convert somewhere down the line. How do I know the conversion was good? Right? How do I know? So when I got married here in Israel, I had a letter from somebody from a rabbi in America that knew 5 generations of my family, or 5 generations of my family. Yeah. So now they didn't necessarily know who he was per se, but that was one thing of proof. And then I had 2 witnesses, the yeshiva I went to. They asked him, "How do you know he's Jewish?" They said, "Because we don't allow non-Jews in the yeshiva." That's what someone said. It's a good answer. It's a very good answer. But there's the question It's not really a question. I'll just throw it out there. There's a question like this. If I know my mother's Jewish and her mother's Jewish, there's no doubts. Do I have to go digging into my family 5, 6 generations back or more to see if there are any problems? What's the answer? What's the answer? No. I have no obligation. I have no obligation whatsoever to do that. I don't have to go back. I don't have to go back. And today someone says, but what would happen if you found out later? That's not a question. That's an irrelevant question. Because there are no doubts. If there was a doubt, somewhere along the line, you're obligated to check it. You know what they say, if it's not broken, don't fix it. But I don't have to go back 10 generations looking for problems. Because we assume everything's okay up until that point. But what would happen? So the question was, let's take it one step further. What would happen if you found out after the fact? You found out 7 generations before there was a quasi-conversion. That mean all my mitzvahs were bad? Does that mean all my blessings were blessings in vain? So the bottom line is, until that information would come up, if it would ever come up, I have nothing to worry about. Nothing to worry about. Because the Talmudic dictum says you leave them on their chazakah. You leave them where they are. You do not go looking for problems. Now, I'm not saying there are problems. I'm not saying there should be problems. You know, do we have to go that far back? Nobody says you do. Nobody. Nobody says you have to go that far back if there are no issues. But if there's an issue, let's make it clear, crystal clear. If there's an issue, and we know there's an issue, then you have to look into it. If I don't know there's an issue, why not look into it? So therefore, someone comes in the synagogue and they ask him, are you a Kohen or a Levi? Right? And he says, I'm a Kohen. They're not asking questions. Why aren't they asking questions? They're going to give him the 3rd degree. How do I know your father's a Kohen? Maybe your mother intermarried? I mean, like, what are you asking? You're going to say it's going to hold up the service, this, that. Well, don't you want to get to the truth? Don't you want to make sure it's not a problem? And what's the answer? I'm not looking for problems. If a person comes into synagogue and they say, I'm a convert, that's a different issue. That's a totally different issue. Why? You got to see, okay, they converted, very good, by who? Where? You know, people are going to want to know because that's a problem. They want to make sure it's done right. Okay. So they're not given the benefit of the doubt. They do not have a chazakah because they were born as a non-Jew. Now you can tell me maybe they were really Jewish. They didn't have any proof. They didn't do what we call a gerus chumrah, a stringent conversion. Okay. There are people like that. They don't have proof. They'll do a quick conversion because they probably have enough evidence to show that they're Jewish. They just don't have proof. You know, okay, right? It's still going to be questions. Why is it going to be questioned? Because we don't mess around with these things. We don't want to call up non-Jews to the Torah. We don't want to give them honors that they don't necessarily deserve. Whether it's right or wrong, I don't care. It doesn't matter, right? We don't want non-Jews participating in services. In general, even as a JIT. Could they open the ark and some other things? Maybe. But we're not going to allow it. We don't want to encourage it, right? So most places will not allow it. People think it's bad. Okay, whatever. That's what goes on. But if someone says they're opening up their mouth and saying this is an issue, you got to check it. You have an obligation 100% to check it, nothing to talk about. But if someone walks in and says they're a Jew, there's no reason whatsoever to think they're not. There's no reason. We have no reason to doubt them. You're going to say maybe they're impersonating a Jew. It's happened. It's happened. You know, there are people that you know, non-Jews trying to infiltrate a community, imitating Jews or whatever. That has happened, right? It's rare. I'm saying the vast majority of people who go to synagogue Most likely people there know their family's generations. And if they don't, they're not questioning it. Right? That's the point. They're never going to question it. Why are they not going to question it? Because I don't have a problem. I have a chazaka. I have something tells me they're a Jew. There's no reason to think they're not. Well, if you look hard enough, yeah, if I look hard enough. Who says I have to? Who in the world says I have to? I'm going to tell you who says that. Nobody. There are no rabbinic authorities out there who hold such a thing. Nobody. If there's a problem, we'll make it clear. If there's a problem, then you got to look into it. Then you got an obligation to look into it. If there's no problem and I have no reason to think there's a problem, why should I make problems? Why? Because the person says, I like to make problems. So you want to make problems for everybody? I mean, it's not normal, right? It's not rational. It doesn't make any sense. Not only that, it doesn't happen. So I'm explaining why doesn't it happen? Why in the world doesn't it happen? You know why it doesn't happen? Because it's not an issue. No one's going to call it into issue. Now, did the chief rabbinate know me from a hole in the wall? No. They had no idea who I was. I had a letter. Okay. I had a letter, someone knowing 5 generations, my family. Knowing them to be Jewish. That's good enough. But that you have to prove you're Jewish. That's a different issue. I'm not going to walk off the street and say, well, I'm Jewish, but here you're getting married. Right? They want to make sure you're not a non-Jew getting married. Right? Kind of problem in this country. Having Jews and non-Jews get married and all that. Right? Or, that's why they want to make, secular marriage. So any Israelis want to get married, want to have secular marriage, they go to Cyprus. That's where they go. It's cheaper, whatever, they go to Cyprus. They want to have a secular marriage. Right? But if you want to have a proper marriage in Israel, you got to show proof. There's some level of proof. Right? Somebody out there knows your family generation. But if there's a question, they're going to look into it. For sure, they're going to look into it. But in general, so that's already, okay, you're getting married. I think it's a much more serious thing here. That you're going to look into more, you look into it a little bit. But someone comes off the street. And they, they put on tefillin, they're praying there. The assumption is they're a Jew unless I know otherwise. They're not going up and saying, are you a convert? If someone wants to call you up to the Torah, they ask you, are you a Kohen or a Levi? They're not looking for problems. That's the whole point. Could someone lie and impersonate? Yes. Is it probable? No. I'm telling you, in 30 years, I've never seen such a thing. Someone new comes to a synagogue or whatever, comes for a family event, and they call him up to the Torah. And they ask him, is it Kohen or Levi, whatever. They're not asking questions, right? I want people to get that in their heads. They're not going to ask questions. You know why they're not going to ask questions? Because it's irrelevant. It's irrelevant. They're going to say, they're Jewish, and that's it. That's what they're going to say. They don't have any issues. What's the person going to say? If he's not Jewish, he's going to say, listen, I'm in the process of conversion. That's what you have to say, right? That's what you have to say. You have to say, I'm not Jewish. Okay. That's what you have to say. At the same time, if they're, they're not asking all these questions. They're not going to ask these questions. Right? So in other words, if it's not broken, you don't fix it. If the person starts saying, wow, I have this issue, okay, they'll call someone else. If the person opens their mouth and says, yeah, there's a problem, don't call me up, fine. They're not going to call them up. But if there are no issues, why am I looking for issues? Why am I fishing for issues? And my point is even, let's say between now and the next 40 year, 50 year, whatever. Yeah. Within that amount of time, somehow it came out in someone's family, there was a convert, whatever. And now it calls in a question. Do I have to worry about that? All the mitzvahs you did before, are they all irrelevant? Are they blessings in vain? There are a lot of issues that could come up here. I can mention 100 of them that are relevant over here. Is it going to matter? Do we say after the fact all the things you did before, you throw them out and it's not worth anything? No, nobody says that. Because otherwise, you call everybody into question. How do you know? You know, my grandmother had will, she'd be a boss. Yeah, but she's not. How do I know? How do I know? Over here. Right? Do I have to go 6 generations? Do I have to go looking? So it's an irrelevant point. That's the whole idea. It's a totally irrelevant point. And even if 6 generations later, someone proved this person, you know, there's something dodgy that went on, all the mitzvahs they did before that, 100% are not erased. They're not erased. Why are they not erased? Because it's got a person has a chazaka. Person stands where they are. At that point, when they were doing these mitzvahs, was there any question they were Jewish? No. But in the future, forget about the future. Right now, is there any question on the Jewishness? Yes or no? No. There's no question. So if there's no question, what are you asking? Right? It's a similar thing. Right? You see this week's Parsha, everything relevant, you know, what's going on in the world. Right? It says that when Hagar, you know, looks away, she doesn't want to see Ishmael die. Right? So the angels say, kill him. Let him die. God says, so there's a medrash. God says, okay, I'd love to kill him. Look at the angels say, look what his offspring are going to do in the future against Jews. Look how bad it's going to be for the Jews from this offspring. Very good. Very good. God says, I have one question for you. This child right now, guilty or not guilty? Child's not guilty. Child's not guilty. So if the child's not guilty, can God kill him? God says no. Why? Because the Torah says, Basher Hu Sham, where he is now. You judge him where he is now. So we're not judged on the future. We're not judged what's going to be later, this, that, and the other thing. We're being judged now for what we did now, or even in the past. It's not about future potential. God's not going to zap a person out and say, hey, you're not reaching your potential. Right? You're totally never going to reach potential. So therefore, I'm going to knock you out now. We learned out from Yishmael. An Arab. A Muslim. You don't get judged on future events. You get judged 100% where you're holding now. That's a good. That's not a bad thing. Because if God really saw our potential, we're not going in the right way, we're in serious trouble. Then God can just zap us now. Right? You only see one case in the history of the Torah. There's one case where God zaps a person when they're much younger based on what they're going to do in the future. Right? What is that? That is called Ben Sora Moira, a wayward child. Between the ages of 12 and 12 and a half, you give him an opportunity to repent. If he doesn't repent, you take him out, parents take him out, and they get him stoned. They get him stoned to death. Because he's not listening to his parents, he's stealing meat, stealing wine, he's going to steal meat, steal wine. That's what he's going to eat. Sorry, he drinks meat, he eats meat, and he drinks wine, right? Let me get that right. He eats meat, he drinks wine, we're worried what's going to be, he's going to steal. That's what we're worried about. Do you see any other mitzvah in the Torah that the Torah is going to be so strict and kill a person based on what they're going to do in the future? Never. You don't see any other thing. But it was almost impossible. It's almost impossible to kill a child anyway in this case. Right? The whole thing, the parents have to be the same height, have to have the same voice. I mean, you go according to the verses over there. Some say, there's an opinion the Talmud says that some say that there is, it never happened. It never happened. Right? So what's the question? What's the obvious question? The Gemara asks, if it never happened, why do we learn it? Why is it in the Torah? Where's the practical ramification? And if it doesn't apply today, right? By sacrifice, we still learn it. We still got an obligation to go through it and learn it. right? But over here, let's say there's an opinion that says, there is an opinion that says it never happened. Lo hayev lo nivra, never was, it never will be. So why learn it? So the Gemara says, you know why you learn it? In order to get married. That's the only reason you learn it. You learn it in order to get married. But the mind-boggling idea, right? Without going into too much detail, you don't see any other mitzvah that you don't allow the person, person can always repent somewhere down the line. Somewhere down the line, he's not going to repent ever. He's going to stay so bad, he's going to do this. What happened to repentance? Every transgression, a person can repent, except this one. This one he can never repent. He's never going to repent. Sorry. He's never going to repent. So therefore, you knock him out now. You kill him early. You kill him when he's guiltless, before he becomes guilty. Which, from what we know, from what the Torah says, that's absolutely very hard to understand. I'm not going to say impossible. It's extremely hard to understand. You're going to say someone who desecrates Shabbos, okay, couldn't he repent? Before you take him out and kill him? You don't kill him before. You give an opportunity to repent. Or Shabbos, bad example, it's corporal punishment. Whatever, they steal. They steal in general. You don't give him an opportunity to repent later, Doesn't God have mercy? Let him repent. Give him an opportunity to repent. In this case, you don't give him an opportunity to repent. Mind-boggling. It's the only mitzvah in the Torah. You don't give him an opportunity. You want to kill the person so they're guiltless. So they're not going to be guilty. You got to say, maybe they won't go that far. Torah says that's what's going to happen. Torah says 100% of the time, if he doesn't get his fix of meat, quarter pound of meat, and a little bit of wine, he's going to steal. He'll steal from his parents and make their lives a misery. Torah says 100% of the time it's going to happen. Can't repent? No possible way to repent? Right? Very hard to understand. Right? Very, very hard to understand. So, that question I answered about pedigree. Which can procreate, angels or demons? Demons. Angels do not have children. Angels are spiritual beings. Demons are also spiritual beings, but they have human form. So angels can procreate and angels can die. Right? Sorry. Demons can procreate and demons can die. Right? Angels not that way. Angels, again, God's messengers, uses them for whatever he wants. They don't procreate. Right? They also never get tired. Right? They don't sleep. They don't eat. Right? They don't have these issues. Can a parent convert and the children be Noahites? There's an issue. There is an issue with that if the children still live at home. A rabbinical court most likely will say that the children, once the children are out of the house, then the parent can convert. Why would a rabbinical court say that? First of all, get non-Jews running around, right? They can trape up your kitchen, right? They can mess up your kitchen. You're trying to keep Shabbos, they're doing other things, right? Even if they're Noahites, doesn't matter. I'm not even talking about their idolatry. It's irrelevant whether Noahites or idolaters. It's the same problem. They can never cook. You can't eat their food, right? Unless you would turn on the fire, you would do something to help cook it. But essentially, you can't trust them in the kitchen. And if they would take your pots and pans and they would cook something from beginning to end, you can't eat it, right? Even if it's got all the best ingredients, all the greatest rabbinic supervision, can't eat it. Because once a non-Jew cooks something, Jew can't eat it. If he cooked it from beginning to end. Reheating something else. Reheating is not called cooking. So if a Jew made, let's say, chicken and rice, and a non-Jew heated it up in a microwave, is that a problem? No, it's already cooked. If a non-Jew cooked burgers, right? Flipping burgers on the barbecue, right? And he did it from beginning to end, right? He cooked it from beginning to end. A Jew can't eat it. Barbecue is treif. Secular Jew, same thing. Secular Jew got the status of a non-Jew if they desecrate Shabbos in public. They also not allowed to cook for you from beginning to end. So if you have a portion in the cooking itself, you stir it a little bit, you turn on the fire higher enough, it's going to cook. Okay? That takes you out of the problem. Because you had a portion in the cooking. Right? You helped out in the cooking. But if a non-Jew or a secular Jew cook from beginning to end, it's a problem. Now, what about a JIT, a Jew in training? Right? Can they eat their own food? Of course. What's the problem? They're not Jewish. Right? It's not a problem. That's why I tell people not to go out and buy new pots and pans. Use the same pots and pans. But eventually you're going to have to kosher them. Right? Koshering them now doesn't make any sense. Or buying new pots and pans doesn't make any sense. Because you have to kosher them anyway. Right? There are two things. One is you have to kosher them. Second thing is if it was owned by if it was manufactured by a non-Jewish company, you have to take them to the mikveh. Right? You have to immerse them in a mikveh if they're metal. Right? If the pots are metal, or if plates, let's say plates are, China's a problem. China's a problem to kosher. Porcelain be a problem to kosher. If you had, let's say you had Corel. Corel is actually earthenware, right? Earthenware you can't kosher, right? But it's earthenware covered by a layer of glass. Right? So Corel is a little more complex. There's a difference of opinion among rabbinic authorities whether Corel has the status of earthenware or whether the status of glass. If it's got the status of glass, I can kosher it. If it's got the status of earthenware, I can't kosher it. So Rabbi holds that it is considered like glass. He holds it's like glass. So therefore, if you traced it up or you messed it up, or in this case, let's say as a non-Jew, you own Corel, you can kosher it. Right? Things that are, fine china, that's a problem. Right? That is definitely a problem that can't be kosher. So if a person, if a person, let's say, wanted to use glass is better in the sense that glass does not absorb. So if you're Sephardic, you can use glass for milk and meat. Why? Because they don't absorb. Glass does not absorb, according to them. Ashkenazim will say no. Ashkenazim will say, you want to use glass, fine, use it for milk or meat. Don't use it for both. You shouldn't use it for both. But glass you can kosher. Right? Silverware, cutlery, whatever you want to call it, you can kosher. Wood is a problem. Wood cannot be kosher. Hard plastic cannot be kosher. Or plastic in general. Right? You take, let's say, you get a strong plastic spoon and you stir up, and it was dairy. And you're stirring up spaghetti and meatballs. Guess what? Take your spoon and say, Skadavi, Skadash, right? It's morning's prayer, it's gone. Can't kosher it. No way to kosher it. Right? So plastic, you can't kosher. Pyrex, I think you can, that type of stuff, you can kosher. Right? You can kosher. So these type of things, like I said, I would never go out and buy it now, because once you cook on it, it's going to be treif anyway. Right? So you have to wait. Whatever you have now, I would say just use, practice as JIT. If a person's going to convert, use something separate from meat, separate from milk, just to, get practice. And then in the end, right after conversion, you're going to kosher everything. You want to buy new pots and pans and whatever. It's fine. Silverware, cutlery, you can kosher. There are ways to kosher, right? Not hard to kosher, right? So everyone will thank me. I just saved them a lot of money. If a Moabite dies, can that soul reincarnate? Can that soul reincarnate if a Moabite dies? Why not? As a question, you can tell me, can a non-Jew reincarnate? Right? So, as much as I know about Jewish reincarnation, right? The whole question, can a non-Jew reincarnate? But let's say, in this case, it's really relevant today because, right? Someone here asks, do we know where Moab is today? No. Right? I don't think well, Moabites don't exist anyway. Right? Moabites do not exist because Sancherib came and messed up all the nations. Right? So when he came and messed up all the nations, Moabites, Moabites included. Let me see, 1 second. I don't even know where it is. Oh, really? Moab would be considered east bank of the Jordan River. Right? I guess that's where it is. That's where it is. So yeah, it's modern day, basically it's modern day Jordan. That's what we would say. Right? That's where it is. Somebody mentions, a person looks Jewish, right? So someone says no such thing. Judaism teaches we're the color of trees. Okay, listen, you have people that live live in the Middle East, or let's say Tunisia, Morocco, much darker, right? Certainly much darker. Moshe Rabbeinu's wife was known to be black or blackish, whatever, from Cush. So they were darker. They, going to be all kinds of different. That's the whole discussion. By certainly by Ashkenazim, can they, how they stay white, right, and not darker, like, because I mean, we all come from the Middle East. I mean, Abraham's the father of all nations, right? If Abraham's the father of all nations, then guess what? We all come from the Middle East. Fertile Crescent, right, as it's known, so we should all be dark. Essentially, we should all be dark. Yeah, so there are different theories. Not necessarily so up to date on how, a lot of them stayed white, and when they migrated to other places. But I would think that if we started here, which is the truth, if we started where we are, i.e. in the Middle East, then guess what? So most of us should be very dark. We should be more dark skinned. Well, the fact is they migrate to different places, so that can have an influence as well. There's more of Jordan, yeah. I think that's the answer, yeah. Someone says, Raj says if Abraham will conquer the land of Moab, Ammon, and Edom. It's messianic days. What are those other than Jordan? Ammon, the Ammonites, right? The Ammonites came from where? Right? Where are they from? One second. Not sure actually. Let me just check here. Right, where would they be? I'm saying it's Egypt. Good question. I think that is right. That's where they came from. I think they were destroyed, right? I think they're definitely gone. There was I think they were murdered or slaughtered. I think if I remember, yeah, it was a mass extinction. I think if that makes sense. They were wiped out. They were basically it seems that they were basically wiped out. And I think they came from Egypt, right? I think essentially they came from Egypt. Let me just double check something. Yeah, also I thought they were Egypt, but seems to be that they were more like Jordan also. Seems that they're more like Jordan also. I don't know, I have to do more research exactly where they were. So someone says raise each other right. So they're probably in Jordan if they're next to each other. That's true. That's gonna be interesting. People are gonna be shocked. I think that there are gonna be a lot of places that eventually the Messiah comes. It's gonna be what we call Greater Israel. Right? I think Syria is gonna be part of that. I think Jordan's gonna be part of that. I think even as far as Iraq, right? I think even as far as there. could also be part of what do you call it, of a greater greater Israel. Amnon was a person, right? But there was a group that came from Amnon that were called Ammonites, right? They're a whole group of people, right? Just like Moabites, same thing. They came from Moab. Where does Moab come from? Moab comes from the first daughter, right? First daughter that slept with Lot, right? And they had a child. First child was called Moab, Me'av, from my father, right? She wasn't necessarily so modest. But Moab comes from my father, right? From my father, right? Moab. So Ammon, I have to see where exactly it comes from. But yeah, they were neighbors, but obviously, there was someone that was their name, and then their offspring. They were called Ammonites. Somebody asked, can I explain how this complete separation of milk was derived? Yeah. Wait. So Moab is Jordan, Ammon is Egypt. What is Edom and the Edomite? Edom is Esau. Esau represents Edom, right? Edom was on Mount Seir. Mount Seir was north, I think, north or south of Israel, or wherever. And the Edomites is what we understand is an offshoot of Esau, right? They're offshoot of Esau. And they pretty much have disappeared. Esau, right? We understand they're descendants of Esau. So if they're descendants of Esau, so we're talking about right. So if you look at Genesis chapter 36, verse 9, right, it says the genealogy of Esau was the father of the Edomites. Right. So Esau is the first descendant, right? And what else came out of Esau are known as Edomites. And the Edomites today were in Egypt, right? They were in other places as well. Some say that they're in the southern hills of Judea, right north of Beersheba. Some say they had their old name Edomians, right? We're Edomites also. They're similar, I guess, in that sense. And they had a kingdom in the southern area, what we call modern day Jordan, and they migrated to southern parts of the kingdom of Judah, etc. And so Genesis chapter 36, right, says these are the kings that ruled in the land of Edom for a king and their children. You have all these people, right? All these princes came out of Esau that were clans, really. They were really like dukes or princes, so to speak. So it doesn't seem like it was hereditary either. In Chronicles, first book of Chronicles mentions king and chieftains of them as well. And what else? Today we understand that the Edomite, really, the Edomites have pretty much, disappeared, as we understand. They got mixed in with everybody else, but we do understand that the Edomites, who do they stem from? Who do they stem from? They stem from Esau, right? They stem from Esau. Now, what does Esau today represent? You think I say we don't know who the Edomites are? Okay, right? But what does Esau today represent? Esau today represents the Western world. That's what he represents, right? He represents the Western world. So the Western world, we understand, right? So when it mentions a part of Egypt, yeah, seemingly. Edom is Rome, yeah, also true. right? Also by the Dead Sea, right? Also. Now, there's an interesting point here. I've mentioned this before, but I'll mention again, because good things deserve to be repeated. And that is that the Malvi, one of the great commentaries 100 years ago, in the War of Gog and Magog, says that final war is going to be a war between Edom and Ishmael. Now, who is Edom? Right? You're going to say, well, the Edomites have disappeared, right? Pretty much. But who does Esav represent? Seemingly represents the Western world. North America, South America, Europe. We'll put in there Australia, South America. Instead of the West, essentially the Western world. Against Ishmael. And whoever is part of Ishmael, right? Whoever's part of the Muslims, right? In the Muslim world. Now, before 9/11, no one would imagine such a thing, and even 100 years ago, right? Even 100 years ago, what the Malbim says, well, more than 100 years ago, that Ishmael, the Muslims had no power. Way back, they had no power. They were tribal clans, different things, but they had no power. They had no essential power. The fact that they got oil, and they started, forming countries and different things, okay, and they're a group to be reckoned with, no question. 400 years ago, no one would have thought of such a thing. No one in the right mind would have thought of such a thing. I have that kind of power. Bunch of nomads, right? They're like Bedouins. They live off the land. They live in tents and who knows what, right? But they're nomads. Essentially, they're nomads. You got to tell me they're gonna try and take over the world? So you would have said, you'd have looked at this Malbim, when he wrote it 100 years ago, you would have looked at it even 50 years ago. No, I'm going to go further back. They go 60, 70 years ago. You're going to say they're going to have that kind of power. Okay, they had oil and different things, fine. Right? But I'm saying before that happened, you would have said, come on. The Malbim's very good. Okay. Very nice. But, I think he made a serious mistake here. Right? We don't see that in the world. It's not even close. Like, okay, you say very nice. Next. Not going to take it that seriously. Why not? Because look at the world, the way the world's set up. Right? But now you see. Now you see what he said is absolute prophecy. I'm not going to say it's going to happen that way. I mean, it does seem like that. It definitely seems like that. I'm not going to bet all my money it's going to happen that way, but it could happen. It very well could happen that way. You have, the way he sets it up is you have Ishmael against Edom. They're fighting a bloody war. And then they realize, why are they fighting a bloody war? Whose fault is it? The Jews. And then they march to Jerusalem, to Yerushalayim. Then the Messiah comes, and that's the beginning and the end. Right? So now, take a look at the scenario right now. You got Israel just went into Gaza. They're going to be going deeper into Gaza. Now, they got some Americans helping them. We got some Brits, I think, some, other nations. Imagine they go into Gaza also. They're backing them. And some people start getting killed. God forbid. But let's say some people start getting killed. So now they're fighting this war. Why are they fighting this war? Why are they fighting against Hamas? Because look what Hamas did to Israel. Okay. But they're going to say, essentially, we're fighting the war for who? For the Jews. So they could say, we're losing people. We're getting people killed. It's all because of the Jews. We're going to attack the Jews also. Yeah. Now, is that potentially a realistic way of looking at the situation right now? Sure. Absolutely is. Is it going to happen that way? If I knew that, I wouldn't be speaking to anybody here. I'd be world famous. Yeah. I would say it's a very good chance it could happen that way. I get a front row seat right here. Hopefully we survive, but who knows? Who knows? It has the end of days. In general, I would say it's going to be something with it just makes perfect sense. You got the Western world against Islam. That's what it is. All over Europe, you got small, significant pockets of Muslims. You got them in England, got them in France, got them all over the place. And their neighborhoods, police will not go in. They're afraid, as they should be. So they're multiplying like no tomorrow. They can take over some of these countries 20 years, 30 years, 50 years. It's a scary proposition. You see what's going on in the world, right? Death to the Jews, and it's not a safe place. Not a safe place now. Right? Now, is that the way it has to be? I'm not going to say it's the way it has to be. But I think the writing's on the wall. There's only one country that had problems with Arabs, with Muslims. You know what that country is? It's Japan. You know why they haven't had problems? Because they don't let them in. It's the only reason. They don't let them in the country. That's why they don't have problems. Everywhere else has problems. England last week, 100,000 people. 100,000 people calling death to the Jews. And they're all over. Different places all over the state. I mean, it's crazy. Absolutely insane. So that's what you have. Talk about the LGBT community and this and that. This is what you have. This is where the war is going to start. How it's going to start and when and then. Okay, maybe it's now. Maybe. Could it get a lot worse? In theory. Could they just, wipe out Hamas, get out, and everything's fine? In theory, but I can't imagine. It's going to be a long, drawn-out thing. But let's say, I think the writing's on the wall. Those are going to be the two combatants. And at some point, as the Malbim says, at some point, they're going to say, why are we doing this? We're going to lose people, missiles getting maimed in this. Why are we doing this? Oh, it must be for the sake of the Jews. We're trying to protect the Jews. That is a realistic scenario. 100% a realistic scenario. Whether it happens that way or not, who knows? Who knows? But everywhere in the world where there are Muslims, there are problems. Everywhere. Nobody is immune except for Japan because they don't let them in. So it's going to manifest itself some way. And Iran's going to have a part also. Iran's also part of the Muslim world. Right? They're very much a part of the Muslim world. Part of Amalek as well. So you see that. There's a medrash. We mentioned this many times in the Book of Psalms. That the medrash says the war of Gog and Magog is going to start with the king of Paras. Where is Paras today? Modern day Iran, Persia. Is that a possibility? Oh, that's a real possibility. That's definitely a real possibility. They're very close to getting a nuclear bomb. Something's got to give somewhere. I read a report. I don't know if it's true or not. They say they're like 2-3 weeks away. Getting enough, I don't know, fission, fusion, whatever it's called, to make a bomb. That's pretty scary. That's pretty scary. So that's what America's afraid of. That's what they're afraid of. They're afraid of them getting involved. That's why it's very touchy right now. Because you got the North, you got the South. But you got Hezbollah, he's got 150,000 missiles. Can hit it probably anywhere in Israel. They're also going to have to go in at some point, probably. No different than Gaza. I mean, that's what they're probably. How are you going to get them out otherwise? Just bomb the heck out of the place. Well, it's probably safer that way. You just keep bombing and bombing and bombing until they stop. Bomb them into submission. But, right, in any case, these are the two powers in the world. Two significant powers, even if the Muslims don't have like real armies and this and that, doesn't matter. They are bona fide power everywhere. Listen, a few years ago in France, there was a whole thing. They shut down the country for 3 weeks, 3.5 weeks. France, I don't know. People can say maybe they are like a third world country. They're not normally a third world country. I mean, they are considered like, one of the world powers. Maybe not necessarily militarily in different ways. But you have a whole group living within inside your country shuts down the entire country for 3.5 weeks. They can't stop it. You tell me it's a ragtag country, it's a third world country. I get it. They're ups and downs all the time. There are wars all the time. Okay. You tell me it's like a major power. Tell me it's like a major power and they're creating all these problems. These are the two powers that are out there. You got the West. Essentially, you got the West. And you got Islam with China and North Korea and Russia. Probably put them together also. Right? Even though we probably call Russia not part of the question whether they're part of the Western world or not, but yeah, easy to see them on the other side, but they're in trouble now also. They're in serious trouble now as well. Right? On a lot of front, because of what's going on in Ukraine. So they're sort of tied up there, but they're, they got plenty of things going on in Syria, and in other places. So like, who knows? Who knows? But those are the sides in the equation, right? That is the point. These are the sides in the equation. How it's going to happen, how it's going to manifest, I don't think we need a great imagination to figure this out. It just so happens we're in the middle of living it now. Just a question how far it escalates. And what's going to be the further that Israel goes into Gaza. And what Iran's going to do. Iran's an X factor, a major X factor. That's why the Americans are here. They got their ships to keep everyone else at bay around, their interests, around this area, around the Middle East. So, very interesting things happening. How it's going to unfold, gotta wait and see. Right? This whole thing could just totally blow up, no pun intended. Right? It could be a major, major thing here. Not just between, Israel and Hamas. There are other players here. You got Hezbollah in the north, right? You got in Lebanon. We got Hamas in the south. I'm not gonna count Syria, a major army at all, or really anything. I mean, they do have a lot of weapons, but essentially, they're not a major threat. They did something to go on heights, they flatten them like a pancake. So like, seriously, like, I wouldn't say they're a major factor. You say, well, maybe Russia will get involved. I don't know, whatever. Without getting into politics, there are two sides here. Right? That's the point. There are two sides, two fronts. But essentially, it's two groups it's one against one. Right? You got Edom, you got the Western world. Essentially the Western world against Yishmael. That's exactly how the Malbim set it up. Now again, before 9/11, you wouldn't have thought of such a thing. And even more than 100 years ago, he never would have thought such a thing. Because they have that kind of power. Nobody in the right mind going to say, oh, these nomads, Bedouins, whatever, they're going to get oil and have all this kind of power and firepower and different things. Nobody's going to say such a thing. 100 years ago? More than 100 years ago? Never. Never. No one take them seriously. They're like, come on. They're going to try and take over the world. Sounds like a great movie. Yeah? They're going to try and take over the world? Never happened. Not the wildest dreams. Never going to 100 years later. Come on. No one's going to take it seriously. You imagine if a historian would have written such a thing. Would have predicted it 150 years ago. They would have laughed him out of the street. And if he was in university, they would have fired him. They go, what fantasy are you making up? You're talking about Bedouins? They're going to have power? They're going to have money? They're going to, they're going to do these other things? They're going to, they don't care if they give up their lives and, and all this. People would have laughed it off. They wouldn't even lost any sleep over it. They're like, come on, you got to be serious. A group like that's going to try and take over the world and be in every country and, try and uproot everything. Hard to imagine. Very, very hard to imagine. Nobody in their right mind would take it seriously. Nobody. I mean, unless you were stoned or drunk or saying, well, it's a great idea. I would have said my dead grandmother could have given me better explanation than that. Come on. That's far-fetched at best. The best. Would never know who would have made such a prediction. Nobody. Yeah. 1 second here. So So what does Moab and Ammon represent today? We said if they represent Jordan, right? They're part of Jordan. Essentially, they're part of Jordan. That's where they ended up. That's what they went. That's where pretty much they ended up. But at the end of the day, we don't know who they are. Sennacherib messed up all the populations, right? But essentially, that's where they were. They were in that part of the world, but they don't exist anyway. They're, let's say like this: the Edomites, they came, even if they were in Egypt and they were in Jordan and these other places, but they went other places. They went other places, i.e., all over the world, right? So you get America, you get North America, South America, right? Those are the offspring of Esau. That's what Edom is. We're the Edomites today. They disappeared, right? We don't have Edomites today. They disappeared as a group, right? But their offspring are all around, right? That made up of who Esau is, right? No one's going to call them the Edomite kingdom. There is no Edomite kingdom today. They all branched out to different countries and different places. They just happen to be who they come from, Esau. So Esau is called Edom. So where is Edom today? I said, part of the Western world. That's where they branched out to all these different places, right? So that's what Edom is. So why do we call all these places Edomites? We don't. Call them North America, South America. That's what we call them. Should we really call them Edomites? Maybe, but we don't. Again, they're not the original Edomites anyway. Those Edomites disappeared, and he mixed up all the population. So we don't even know who they are, but they went to different places. So all these places are part of Edom, even if we don't know who the Edomites are. That's the answer. They're no different from Haman in the book of Ezekiel. I don't know. I'll look that up. Says now Persia will destroy 2/3 of the world. I don't know. You got to bring me a proof. I think it was 1/3. 1/3. 1/3 gets destroyed. 1/3 gets injured. 1/3 1/3 survives. Yeah. So again, any of these things, even if you're gonna say, let's say we'll take it at face value, right? While we're on this topic, yeah. So let's say Persia's gonna destroy 2/3 of the world. Has it happened? No. Is it gonna happen? Nobody knows. Nobody knows how it's gonna happen, right? But if it hasn't happened, it hasn't happened yet. It's a prediction, right? It's a prediction. It could happen that way. It could happen this way. It could happen a different way. There are a lot of contradictions in Tanakh. That's why we're not allowed to try and figure it out when the Messiah is going to come. Person will make a mistake, the Rambam says, and then you say, oh, see, according to my calculation, the Messiah is supposed to come, it didn't come. That's it, I don't have to keep Torah mitzvahs. There are a lot of contradictions in Tanakh. So the point is, could Persia wipe out 2/3 of the world? Yes. In theory. Is it going to happen? I have no idea. I have no idea. Right? So one of the Haftorah says 1/3 are going to get wiped out. Right? It's going to take 8 months to bury them. Okay. It's going to take 8 months. 8 months to bury them. Who does it? So let me ask a better question. Doesn't matter. See, I think that's a more relevant question. Who cares? Right? Where's the relevance here? Where's the relevance? It might happen this way, it might happen that way. And, if I would ask my Rebbe this question, what the answer would be? What are you wasting time on this for? It's interesting, but you're never going to figure it out. You're never in a million years going to figure it out because the contradictions all over the place. Focus on other things. That's what he would tell me. That's what he would tell me. Yeah. So it says like this over here, and it says like that over there, and it says like this, and there are 4 other explanations this way, that way, and the other way, all throughout Tanakh. And so what? What does it show? It shows it could happen in a lot of different ways. It doesn't show it's going to happen in one way. It's not going to happen. Someone's going to be wrong somewhere. Their prediction. There are different things possibly could happen. Is it going to happen that way? No idea. One opinion the Talmud says is that if we do everything we're supposed to do, there's not going to be war at all. Everyone's going to be, playing the guitar, singing Kumbaya. Everything will be great. There won't be any issues. Hard to imagine it's going to happen that way, but that's also a possibility. Right? So there are a million different possibilities what could happen. I'm just pointing out, I think the Malbim's got it right. I think it's going to happen that way. Could I be wrong? 100% I could be wrong. Could happen 10 different ways. I have it right the way the Malbim sets it up. Right? If I was a betting man, I'd say he's right. Can I say that for certain? No. Nobody knows. Nobody knows. People want to talk about it. Very interesting. Right? It is very interesting. But at the end of the day, I'll tell you like this. Well, who cares? What's the relevance? Where it says the Chronicles like this, and it says in Ezekiel like that, and it says in Isaiah like this, and they're all going like this. They're not all agreeing. They're not all agreeing. So, is there any possible way to figure it out? You're going to be able to dig through all the layers and all the commentaries to try and get right? So the commentaries say don't bother doing it. It's interesting. I would agree. Right? But at the end of the day, you're never going to figure it out. Because there are contradictions different places. One says like this, someone says like that, someone says the other thing. So I gave my spin on it for what it's worth. I think the Malbim's got it right. Yeah. Does that mean he's right? I got a front row seat. We'll see what's going to be. We don't know. Nobody knows. Nobody knows how it's going to end up. Right? There are a lot of possibilities. Okay. A lot of very interesting possibilities. So, it doesn't matter. Right? For former Christians, I get it. It's a big thing because that's all I'm talking about is JC coming back. Right? And I'm coming back and I'm coming back and I'm coming back. Okay. Right? And they can't read Tanakh for a lick. Why not? Because they don't know any of the commentaries very good. So they don't know anything. So they're going to say, oh, it might be like this, it might be like that. All these different things are going to happen. They're all wrong. They're all wrong. The problem is that, so since they've been told that their whole lives, I get it. Right? It's a nice, interesting topic. They want to know, okay, what's going to be? What's going to be by the end of days? You know what the answer is? We don't know. Essentially, we don't know. It's all clouded mystery. According to Tanakh, it's clouded in mystery. So what do I do? Not much you can do. You want to look into it, delve into it. Okay. But you're going to get stuck because you're going to see contradictions all over the place. And not only that, what are the prophets referring to? They'll say, there's going to be something with a big bear up north. People are going to say the big bear up north, you know what that is? Former Soviet Union. That's what they're going to say. Yeah. So who knows? Right? They'll get involved. Other people get involved. It's a big mystery. It's a big mystery. It's interesting. I would agree. 100%. So it says, God says, to break up, last week's Haftarah, break up Lebanon. Destruction. Destruction means death. Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't mean everyone's going to die per se, but a lot of people can die. Yeah. Destruction is never good. The language of destruction means, usually means the whole place is decimated. It doesn't mean everybody dies, though. Right? But it definitely means a lot of people are going to be moved or whatever. Someone asked before, I want to get this question. Someone asked, okay, separation of milk and meat. There's a verse that says, "Should not boil a kid in its mother's milk." Very good. Now, the verse tells us 3 times. 3 times you're not allowed to boil a kid in its mother's milk. Right? Very true. Very true. Now, if that is the case, what do I learn out from the Torah? It repeats itself for no reason. So why does the Torah say you're not allowed to kill a calf in its mother's milk 3 times? First reason is you're not allowed to eat it. Second thing is a Jew's not allowed to eat it. Second thing is you're not allowed to cook it, even if a Jew's not going to eat it. Third thing is you're not allowed to derive benefit from it. Right? So milk and meat, that means I can't own stock at McDonald's. Right? Milk and meat, you can't derive benefit from. Now, somebody asks, okay, where do you see from the verse? Where do you see from the verse complete separation of milk and meat? Now, a kid in its mother's milk. Simple explanation is I got meat, right, which is a calf. So you cannot boil it in its mother's milk. That's milk and meat. Now, what's the Torah prohibition of milk and meat? Kosher meat, kosher milk. McDonald's, rabbinic prohibition. Any other fast food milk and meat is rabbinic. Why? Because it's not kosher meat, not kosher cheese. Right? So here in Israel, you got the first glatt kosher treif McDonald's. What do I mean glatt kosher treif? You got kosher meat, kosher cheese, and they mix it together. That's Torah prohibition. That 100% is Torah prohibition. So cooking a calf in its mother's milk, simple explanation is I can't cook milk and meat. That's what it means. Right? That's a simple explanation. I'm taking meat. Taking a calf, I can't cook it in milk. Now, I thought you were asking a different question. What about all the separation of utensils and this and that? Okay. The rabbis made a fence around the Torah because if you had everything together, you might make a mistake. And you might actually cook. You might actually cook milk and meat, right, together. Right? So the whole thing, speak about the laws of kashrus. Right? There's the whole thing that if I have a a meat pot's been used within 24 hours, so it still has the taste of meat in the walls. So let's say I cook up now spaghetti and cheese. I got a problem. You gotta say it's not a mixture of milk and meat, right? How's that a mixture of milk and meat? Because I have taste. Taste is like the thing itself, right? If it wasn't used within 24 hours, then whatever I cook in is really rancid, right? So if I cook cheese in a meat pot, technically the meat pot wasn't used within 24 hours. I didn't necessarily mess it up. I have to clean it and all that, but I didn't necessarily mess it up. Right? I gotta say, where'd they get that from? Okay, that's the whole thing. It'd take me way too long to go through it, right? But that's the whole thing how it gets derived, right? From the taste, and if I have, let's say 60, if I have a pot of meat, and a drop of milk falls in, I get 60 times the amount, nullification, right? How does nullification work? Why should nullification work, right? These are questions in kashrus, right? These are major fundamental questions, in kashrus. But a lot of things you have to understand that when the rabbis came along, and made a fence around the Torah. Why did they make a fence around the Torah? So they won't come and make a worse prohibition. You won't come to a worse prohibition, right? Essentially. So at the end of the day, right? At the end of the day, why do we have separation? So you don't mix them up. And it's very easy if you have a lot of things that look the same. That's why milk and meat, utensils and stuff should look different, or they should be labeled. Because otherwise you will make a mistake. You just forget. If everything looks the same, how do you know which is what? So you're going to say, oh, what's the big deal? Big deal is if it's used within 24 hours, I can mess it up. That's why I have separation. But simple explanation, the short, long answer is the fact that it says don't boil a kid in its mother's milk, i.e., what's a kid? A calf. What's a calf meat? Can't cook milk and meat together. Now, technically speaking, if I put cheese, everything's cold. I put cheese on salami. Can't eat it together. Did I mess anything up? Simple answer is no. Maybe I have to cut around the cheese a little bit, sliver around the cheese, and sliver around the meat, so that it doesn't absorb the taste. But what's the Torah prohibition here? Torah prohibition is cooking. I need a transfer of heat. If I don't have a transfer of heat, did I really, mix milk and meat? No, I can't eat it together. Technically, if I wanted to, I could take cheese that wasn't processed more than 6 months, right? It's considered not hard cheese. So I took cheese, I ate some cheese, right? I ate some cheese. Now, I wash out my mouth. Can I eat meat? I can eat meat straight away. That's not a problem. I shouldn't eat the cheese and the meat together. But I could eat it right afterwards. Now, if I eat meat and then I eat cheese, now I get a problem because I have to wait. Some say because it might get stuck in your teeth. There are other reasons. Why have to wait 6 hours? Most people wait 6 hours. In Holland, I think they had an opinion that you only wait 1 hour, but it has to do with digestion and other things. How long a person would have to wait, right? So there are different reasons, right? Between meat and milk, that's a different issue. That's a totally different issue. Between milk and meat, technically speaking, I can eat a chocolate bar and then have a hamburger straight away right afterwards. Just wash out my mouth, right? Eat something and whatever, and then eat meat. Is that a problem? Not a problem. Be allowed to do that. The other way around is a problem. Yeah. But again, you get into more, you get it. There are a lot more things going on here. I just sort of highlighted a little bit. It's like, it's like trying to give a 30-second answer or a 10-second answer on like 3 pages of Talmud or more, right? So, that's what I would say. Gotta wait for the class on kashers. One thing, America and the Western world should not be trusted, right? Right? Well, no man should be trusted, right? Only trust in God, that's for sure. I always say that's what we learned from the Holocaust. Can't trust man, no question about it. Someone asked, you think people in America will be forced to go on with the government opposing Israel? Listen, someone said earlier, secular Jew, like, it was like the first time, like, really scared to be a Jew. Really scared to be a Jew. I mean, can they force anything? I would tell you like this. There's really been one exile. Every other place almost in the world, maybe except Australia. I don't know if Australia really counts, but Jews have pretty much been thrown out of every country. Thrown out of Spain, France, all over. One country they haven't been thrown out of is America. Have not been thrown out. Now, do they, are they obligated, to throw them out? No, but, there could be a point where, could I see a scenario where anti-Semitism is so high, so unbelievably high, they just say, listen, we're getting, the Muslims are bombing all over the place and this and that, it's because of the Jews. Could in theory they say we want all the Jews out? Theory? You would say, come on, in this day and age, whatever. In theory, it could happen. Very well could happen. Will it happen? Some people would say the writing's on the wall. But the question is, what does that mean? The government's going to force you. What are they going to force you to do? Be pro-Hamas? The government's going to try and force you to do that. They'll just keep the Jews out, maybe. Right? Is there anything you can do to oppose it? Listen, there are people calling other people out and getting fired from jobs. There are stories of like you had the Arab dentists in America that were ripping down flyers of hostages in Israel, hostages that are taken by Hamas. Yeah, people called them in, called them on it, and the people they got fired. That's something that can be done. Right? Anti-Semitism can't be excused. That's what a person can do. But if they, the question is, I'm not sure what you mean, that they're going to force, what are they going to force you to do? Governments are going to force you to be pro-Hamas. That they're not going to force you to do. They're going to fight, Islam or whatever until they realize they're doing it for the sake of the Jews. But they're going to fight because they're diametrically opposed to it. That's exactly what the Malbim says. That's why I think it makes so much sense. He's going to say they have a different opinion in religion, in the way they look at the world. Well, yeah, they do. Huge difference. That's why it's going to be a major bloodbath, right? Major bloodbath, right? So what are you going to do? So what's going to happen? They're going to fight each other to no end. The only question is, is it going to be that they're going to blame the Jews and then fight against Israel? That's the question. But would they be pro-Hamas and get rid of the Jews in America? I don't think so. Yeah, definitely not. Right? I mean, Jews got a lot of power there. Still, doesn't matter. They can throw them out also. right? Definitely throw them out also. Right, somebody points out he can't do it individually. Yeah, they can act against Israel. That's true. Right, that's true. But what? Yeah, question would be, what could they do? What could they do individually? Right, what could they do? I've heard people say, you can't trust them. For sure, if you have money, get it out of America, because they might just shut it down. Whatever money a person has, they might just either not allow you to take it out, or allow you to take some of it out, not all of it, like they do in South Africa. They don't allow them to take a lot of money out, right? So could that happen? I know the people talking about that. I've heard people talking about that for a while. Potentially. I don't know. How far this how far that goes. Someone there says it seems cruel to take nursing calf slaughter and its mother's milk. Okay, it's not necessarily it's not literal, right? Not literal, because even today, let's say you get a burger from the store, you get burgers or meat or whatever, and you're cooking in milk. Is that the same milk from the same cows? No, right? So you can't take it literally. It just means you can't cook milk and meat together, right? It does sound kind of disgusting, but it's never gonna happen. Practically speaking, it's never going to happen, because the same meat you're eating, the same milk is not coming from the same place, right? Plant-based sour cream. Yeah, if it's plant-based, then it's not a problem, right? There's no dairy in it. There's no milk in it. Okay. Yeah, that's not a problem. That is definitely not a problem. Sometimes what people will do is if they're, let's say, they're having coffee with a meat meal, yeah, and they put milk in, yeah, they put soy milk in, let's say. So what some people do is they'll put the soy milk on the table. They'll put the soy milk on the table just to show them it's not real milk, right? It just is like it's a separation type of thing. They have non-kosher dairy sour cream, right? Also. Listen, there are plenty of things you can get. It's like it looks like cheese, but it's not. It's like they got so many products out there. You don't have a need to get soy milk. You got what do you call it, almond milk. You got other types of milk that are it's not real milk. Not milk as we that would be forbidden with meat. Right. So get a lot of these things. Right. 100%. 100%. You get a lot of these things. Yeah, so that is that's what I would say about that. Any other questions? Rice milk also. Yeah, rice milk also, but if you use goat milk, it's milk, right? So goat's milk would be out. So rice milk would also be all right, right? Anything that's not real milk, it's not real milk, then it shouldn't be an issue. But again, you're eating meat with it, so I would just put it on the table, right? Unless you're the only one there. But you would put it on the table just to show that it's not regular milk. Yeah. Any other? Someone says, "Gotta break the habit of flavored creamy." Yeah. So I don't drink coffee or any of this stuff, so that doesn't. Well, thank God I don't have that issue. Yeah. Any other questions? Or general question? All right, I'm going to stop here. I just every Sunday, usually 9 o'clock Eastern time, 4 o'clock Israel time. Did an hour earlier only because we changed the clocks. So next week should be back to normal time because America changed the clocks next week. Anyone has any questions, find me on Facebook at Michael Chaim Kaufman. Beyond Orthodox Conversion Judaism, orthodoxconversion.com, or Beyond Orthodox Conversion Judaism on YouTube. There I got videos on the Torah portion of the week. Q&As, ethics of our fathers, Book of Leviticus, and you want to send me an email, rabbichaimkaufman@gmail.com, RBBICHAIMCOFFMAN @gmail.com, whichever good beginning of the day.